In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. Genesis 1:1. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. Is it no wonder, with these precious, glorious words, that our ministry is called Beacon of Light? Tonight we celebrate what the Lord has done, what he is doing and will continue to do through the ministry of Beacon of Light and My Choice Pregnancy Care Centers. Last year, in 2025, we saw over or close to 800 appointments. Many parents got the opportunity to participate in parenting and labor classes, and close to 200 parents chose life. That is a 30% increase from 2024, so we expect the same going into 2026. That is what the Lord has done, but he is not done yet. With the Lord, there is more to grow, more to do, and this is where we're going. Upon entering the role as executive director, I began to prayerfully consider how to proceed. And one goal became abundantly clear in prayer: prepare for growth. What that meant was assessing, ensuring our infrastructure, creating a culture that thrives and excels with systems to sustain influxes of growth, equipping our staff and volunteers to serve with excellence, assessing the abortion epidemic, and aligning our efforts, time, and resources to push back the dark in the areas that are needed most. So the first of which was training. Within my first 3 months of being on the job, our nurse director, Amy Phillips, approached me with an opportunity to go to a limited ultrasound training. That would involve 5 days away, travel at lodging. For a nonprofit, you could imagine we kind of take a deep sigh and worry, but of course the answer was yes. Ultrasounds are critically important to what we do. They assess the viability of the unborn child. It detects a potentially life-threatening ectopic pregnancy, can determine the gestational age of the child, and the precious part, can hear the heartbeat. Once the mother, and sometimes father, see their child on that screen, hear that heartbeat, it stops being a situation to deal with. It stops being a clump of cells. They hear with their own ears, see with their own eyes, the baby within. This year, we also sent our nurse, Liberty Soma, to the same ultrasound training for all these purposes. We also have a very experienced sonographer on staff, Linda Hendrickson, who comes alongside our nurses, so our ultrasounds are the best that they could be. Materials are also been bought, so they're quick reference guides if anything seems to be amiss when they're doing an ultrasound. Training continues for our advocates. This year, we began a new training, Compassion, Hope, and Help. This training is 13 weeks long. We have the most blessed, devoted advocates. With this training, we hope that there will be sharpening and fine-tuning of knowledge and skills that are already there. What encompasses a training like this? They learn the history of abortion, guidance in assessing themselves and their goals in advocating, equipping to have spiritual conversations, teaching and preparation to see the mother's perspective more deeply, to understand the influences and pressures that she faces. It addresses the fathers, and why he is so critically important in the life of the unborn child and understanding his perspective. It sharpens their effective communication, their knowledge in pregnancy education, abortion education, life-affirming alternatives, coaching and empowering parents to choose life. Another cornerstone is culture. In 2026, we started a new culture. We believe in rhythms. See, culture forms community. Positive culture strengthens and grows us. Negative culture can weaken and stifle us. We are creating a culture of positive rhythms within our ministry. Leadership now meets on a weekly basis to stay connected, in sync, and in rhythm with one another. During these meetings, there is always prayer, a devotional time, and collaboration for that week. Nurses and advocates have also gotten into a rhythm. Once a month, every month, they too join up and have their meetings for prayer, fellowship, strengthening, and updates on training, procedure, and systems. The whole team meets together every other month for the purposes of unity, prayer, fellowship, spiritual formation, and growth and development. See, within our ministry, we are a church of many churches, a team who walks together, learns together, grows together, sometimes cry together, and always celebrate together. One of the cornerstones is also the infrastructure. There is a statistic, not many know it. 60 to 70% of abortions in the US are chemical abortions. It has far exceeded procedural abortions now. So while we have always referred mothers to the abortion hotline and provide information on our My Choice website, we're beginning to take more steps to push back the dark in this area. We need to get them before they start taking that series of pills. And we need to do our best and be our best when they walk through the doors. So this year, we contracted with Infinite Worth. There are 24/7 on-call nursing that comes alongside us, and they answer all the texts when we're closed. So what does that mean? No one gets missed. That person that is timid and doesn't want to talk to someone can hide behind a screen through a text at 3 o'clock in the morning and find someone to get help. What that means is our staff can rest and can live a life uninterrupted, be rejuvenated, and ready for when they come back into that center to give that person that Christ-centered, compassionate care. These texts are not gone without supervision. Our nurse director and our patient resources director constantly monitor that, review them, and get in touch with anyone that needs to be that or get that special touch. And finally, fathers. The statistic on fathers and abortion. Of mothers contemplating abortion, 86% will have that abortion if the father is absent, indifferent, abortion-minded, or abortion-determined. With this kind of number, we can't ignore this anymore. And we haven't in the past, but we're taking steps to be more intentional to engage with the fathers. Starting this year in January 2026, we added one simple question to our intake. Is the father coming? 4 words, 1 question that can change everything. We have had now intakes where the mother that's calling for the appointment pauses after hearing this question. It's a thought she never even considered. She says she'll call back to see if he's available. Is the father coming? There's been another situation where the mother came in and she was abortion determined, but the father was there. An ultrasound was had. He saw his baby. He changed his mind. Is the father coming? Since we started this question, we've been keeping track now. The number of fathers who attend is starting to slowly climb, and we're seeing close to 30 to 40% of all abortions are now mother and father. In addition to the pamphlets and information we do give a father when he shows up, we've added a booklet, and it's titled Before We Decide. There was a we at a conception, there should be a we at the decision. We are praying and hopeful that this will grow into more. And as the Spirit leads, we did add one more pamphlet. We don't give it generously, but we just wait on the promptings of the Lord because, wait for the title, it's called The 7 Benefits of Marriage. It's not just about the cohabitation, but the union, the God-divine design for family. And it starts with marriage. We are hopeful, we are praying, God willing, someday to have men advocating for life alongside our current advocates. We leave that to the Lord. So as I close and make room for the real speaker of the night, I want to take us back to the scripture I began with. God's first creation was light. God declared in John 1:5 that light shines in the darkness. Notice the tense of that word shines, it's present and ongoing. It has not ended, and the darkness is not overcome it. Abortion is a great darkness, but God, He created light. And we are dedicated to being and remaining that beacon of light. So tonight, we invite you to partner with us and be what Daniel 12:3 describes as, and those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Would you join us and shine like the brightness of the sky in being part of those who turn many to righteousness like the stars? We ask and pray that you would help us keep our light on. We've come to the night that it's time for our guest speaker. If you would allow me to introduce Doreen Jansen. Doreen Jansen is a nonprofit leader, consultant, speaker, and trainer with more than 2 decades of frontline experience serving pregnancy centers. She led a thriving ministry on Long Island through seasons of growth, building value-driven teams, clarifying mission, and translating biblical principles into daily practices that serve women and families with excellence. Today, Doreen equips Christian nonprofit leaders to strengthen culture, craft clear strategic plans, and embed value-driven rhythms so teams can advance the kingdom one life at a time. She is joyfully married to Pastor Pete Jansen, and in addition to serving pregnancy centers, they are equipping marriages to be all that God intended through their Marriage by Design conference. With a steady, hope-filled voice and a strategic discipline, Doreen's passion is helping ministries stand firm in truth, lead with love, and make a measurable impact for life. And she is a personal mentor of mine. Would you help me please welcome Doreen Jansen?
Good evening. That was a very delicious chicken dish, wasn't it? We've had a lot of chicken dishes in our day. We've had a lot of banquets, and I have to say, I really enjoyed our dinner tonight. And I'm so honored to be here. I'm a little bit nervous about this thing, though, that it's a little too wobbly for my iPad. So, can I ask for a raise of hands if this is your first Beacon of Light banquet? First one. Oh my, that's wonderful. Welcome, welcome. And if you have been invited by somebody that you're sitting with, can you raise your hand? Are they with you right now? They've invited you? That's awesome. I have a feeling that you're here for a special reason tonight. I think it's more than just having a delicious chicken dinner and hearing all the wonderful stories of Beacon of Light, which are amazing. I think that God has something special for you tonight, and my prayer is that tonight you would be inspired by what you're hearing about the work that God is doing through this ministry, that you would be encouraged, that you would be motivated, and maybe a little bit educated on what this ministry means to the community, to the clients. And I know some of you who have probably known this ministry for many years are just that you love this ministry and you want to see this ministry grow. And that's my heart as well. I was an executive director and CEO of Soundview Pregnancy Services on Long Island. I had just fallen in love with the ministry of pregnancy centers and had been serving as a volunteer for many years. And then over time, I was eventually selected to be the executive director and was able to take the ministry from a single storefront pregnancy resource center with diapers shoved in the windowsills because the windows were leaking and the ceilings were stained and the carpets were all ripped up. And I started there and I just looked around and I said, why would any woman want to come here who's in a crisis? And so I went to the board and I talked to them about the idea of going medical. We really need to give women every tool and every opportunity to be able to make a choice for life. And so we set out to do that, and within 2 years of my being on board, we were able to go medical. And I'll skip and jump through my career, but in my 15 years, we were able to open 3 medical pregnancy centers, locations on Long Island, and we line the spine of Long Island. And I know that we're all living in New York, but Long Island is a little bit of its own animal, if you know what I mean. It's very tough ground, but God had his hand on this ministry from the very beginning. And I'm very grateful to have been a part of it for so long. So I've just retired as of January, and the mission hasn't stopped. I am still coaching and consulting with other pregnancy centers because I really believe all of my years in the last 30 years of being a believer that we just need more lights. We just need more places of hope and places that can share life and love with those who are in our community. So my prayer is simple tonight, that your heart would be moved, that your understanding of the life-saving work happening through Beacon of Light would deepen, and before you leave, that you would see this mission not just as something good, but as something that you're personally invited to be a part of. I believe we all want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. I think we just do. I think God has created that heart in us that we want to belong to the work that he is doing. And when we see God moving and at work in a ministry and through people who are on the front lines and doing the work, we want to get behind them. And I have to tell you, in all the years that I have been involved in pregnancy ministries, Beacon of Light is one of the most professional, well-run ministries that I have come in contact with. And I have come in contact with a lot of ministries. And I have to give a lot of credit to the board. I know I met Lisa about 2 years ago, and I kept telling her every time I spoke with her, can you come be our board chair, please? Can you please come be our board chair? Because she just had such a heart, and so she was so intentional about really creating a ministry that was running with integrity and with authenticity and with excellence. And the board and the staff, you have accomplished that. It is an excellent, excellent ministry. So I just want to say thank you. When I would come home from work, I remember this one particular time I was in my kitchen and I was making dinner, and my husband's sitting there and he says, "How was your day today?" And just thinking about the day, we actually had a save that day. And that's what I said. I said, oh, we had a save. And he said, stop. I'm cooking dinner, and he says, just stop. And I turned around and I looked at him. He said, did you hear what you just said? We saved a life today. And exactly. Who gets to do that? Who gets to do that? To know that there was a woman who walked through our doors that day who was determined to abort her baby, but because she was able to see that baby on sonogram, she saw the baby's heart beating, she was met with love and hope and compassion. Thank you so much. And she chose life. You are wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. I am Italian, and I like to talk with my hands, and so now I can hold the mic and walk, and I'm just a happy camper now, so thank you. You're going to help me with this, too. What is this? That's that's so much better. Okay. I have a couple of truths about pregnancy ministry that I want to share with you tonight. Because after the years that I spent serving in this work, I can tell you that the deepest heartbreak that I would always personally feel was for the women who were walking through our doors. They just felt unseen, unheard, unloved, walking through these doors alone, feeling like nobody is there to support them. They're overwhelmed and they're afraid. And in that moment, everything hangs in the balance, which means that we have been given something extraordinary. We get to step into that place and reflect the heart of God. We get to be his hands and feet. We get to look into the eyes of his daughters and remind them, you are seen, you are loved, and you are not alone. What a privilege that is. I know, Amy, you said that it's just a privilege to be able to share the gospel with women who are seeking help and hope. And when they're pregnant, they're not banging on the church's door, they're looking for help. And hopefully they're finding our pregnancy centers before they find Planned Parenthood or another abortion clinic. But we have an opportunity right then and there to meet this woman at the point of her need. And it is a huge responsibility, and it does need to be bathed in prayer on a regular basis. We are in a spiritual battle, not only spiritual battle, we're in a political battle, we're in a cultural battle. Beacon of Light is swimming upstream every single day, but they've decided to step in. They've chosen to step in and be on the front lines of this spiritual battle, facing life and death on a daily basis. It's hard work, I can tell you that right now. But it is an honor to be an ambassador of Christ, carrying hope into someone's heart in the most vulnerable moment in her life. I was one of those young women at one time in my life. I carried the burden of having an abortion for decades. At the age of 14, I was raped by a friend's brother, and I became pregnant. As a scared teenager, I hid my pregnancy from everyone. I'll spare the details, but at the end of that story, I was admitted to the hospital in my 24th week of pregnancy, where they administered a saline abortion, which is a barbaric and gruesome procedure that lasted for 2 days. The trauma of that experience haunted me for years. I want to focus on one small word that describes what most women feel compelled to do, which is what I did when she becomes pregnant. I hid. I was scared. I was ashamed. I felt alone. I had nowhere to go. I had no one to talk to. I couldn't talk to my teachers. I couldn't talk to my mother. I couldn't talk to my friends. How would they help me? And I was told by the person who did this that if I told anybody that he would deny it anyway, so I just felt like it was useless. So I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. When a woman finds out that she's pregnant and is not in a life circumstance that will support her pregnancy, her first response is to get rid of the problem. And where does she go for help? I wish I could say that she goes to her pastor or her parents or a trusted friend, but she is looking for the first person or the first website that will promise her escape from the problem that she has. And I wish I had my phone up here because that's where she's going. She's going to her phone. That is the very first thing that she's going to. 99.9% of this generation, the phone is everything. That's where they're going. And what she will find very, very easily within minutes is a website that will offer to mail her an abortion pill, and that she could take this abortion pill in the privacy of her own home and no one needs to know. The abortion industry and politicians are still telling us how safe and effective the abortion pill is. She can so easily hide from anyone knowing about her pregnancy. She's told that it is as safe as taking a Tylenol, and there are even some promotional videos, and I saw this video for myself, that promote the day that she's aborting her baby as a spa day. It was the most disgusting video that I had ever seen. It was a doctor who just had this very, very flat affect of a facial expression, and she was just kind of with the mood lighting and everything behind her, just relax, take a bath, and, this is something that you can do, and it's almost like she was pampering herself. It is so deceptive. But the problem is she hasn't had a medical exam. The problem is there is no medical oversight, and she doesn't really know how pregnant she is. This medication is supposed to have a 10 to 11 week gestational limit. But what if she's 12 weeks or 13 weeks? That baby is already fully formed. By 12 to 13 weeks, the baby is about the size of a peach or a plum, around 3 inches, and it will mark the end of her first trimester. Major organs, muscles, and bones are present and beginning to function. The baby is actively moving, kicking, stretching, swallowing amniotic fluid, and has developed unique fingerprints. The face is well formed with the nose, chin, ears in place. Eyelids are formed and fused shut to protect the eyes, and fingernails are starting to develop. Muscles and bones are strengthening. The baby is moving frequently and arms and legs are fully formed, though these movements may not be felt by the mother yet. This is a child being fearfully and wonderfully made by God, our Father in his own image. There is divine dignity to this child. But yet in a moment of fear, this beautiful life can be extinguished by a small but deadly pill. But she believes this is the only easy way out. She can hide and no one will know. But what she's not told is that she will experience heavy bleeding and cramping and sometimes hemorrhaging. What she is not told is that sometimes the medical abortion is incomplete, leaving parts of the baby inside of her that can become infected and actually take her life. What she is not told is that sometimes she will see a fully formed baby and that she would have to be responsible for disposing of that child herself. What she is not told is that every time she goes back into her bathroom that she's going to be re-traumatized by what she's experienced. The abortion pill usage is now the most common form of abortion today. Women are being lied to that it's safe. Emergency rooms are seeing increased numbers of women who are showing up at the emergency room and are told to not tell the emergency room doctors that they took the abortion pill, but that they're just having a miscarriage. Because I believe that there's a fear of exposing the dangerous effects of this highly politicized medication. But I digress. Let's get back to what's going on with the woman in the bathroom. As I spoke moments ago, God sees us. God sees all of us just as we are, not the cleaned up version of ourselves, not the version that we want everybody else to see, but God sees us, all of us. And he loves us anyway. And I love that, knowing that whatever decisions I've made that are good or bad, or any of the things that I've done that maybe he would be proud of, or that you would be proud of, or maybe not so proud of, God sees. He sees everything that's going on in our lives and in our hearts. Nothing is hidden from him. In Psalm 139, David says, "O Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts, even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night, but even in darkness I cannot hide from you. To you, night shines as bright as day, and darkness and light are the same to you. So think about that. When we're in our darkest place, God sees us and he is there with us. And he's with that woman in the bathroom. And in that moment, God and I and we at Soundview, we don't care what political party she belongs to. We don't care if she's pro-life or pro-choice. We care about this woman. And that is the essence of Beacon of Light and how they minister to women. They are there with her. They step into the mess. They step into the pain. They step into her situation. And they treat her with dignity and respect. And that's what she deserves. She is a child of God, and she's carrying a child of God. And we want her to know that she is seen, and she is loved, and she is cared for. Would you just take a moment and turn to the person next to you and say, God sees you, and you matter. All right, I want to transition now to when Jesus was talking to his disciples in the book of John 10:10, he says, "The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly." You see, Jesus' mission was not only to give us physical life, but a transformed spiritual life through his death on the cross. There are two Greek words in the Bible that refer to life. One is bios, which is the physical life, and the other one is zoe, which means a spiritual life. This is a life that's filled with love, joy, and peace out of the overflow of being connected to the source himself. I want to talk to you about the woman at the well. Are we all familiar with that story? I think most of us probably are familiar with the story. And if there was an archetype of a character that really is who we serve, it's this woman. She's there at the well. She's at Jacob's well in the heat of the day. And it's probably because the other women and the other people of the town are not there. She's kind of an outcast. She has a reputation. And she's going there for physical water. And who is there? Jesus. And he just didn't happen to be there. He chose to be there. He went out of his way to be there to speak to this woman. So he saw her and he pursued her. And in this exchange that they are having, when Jesus asked her for water, and she, I think, had some sort of a wisecrack, and he said, if you knew who was asking you for water, that you would give it to me. And he said that he is the living water. And so through this exchange, what's happening is this woman is going to the well for the physical water, but with this encounter with Jesus, she's walking away with the living water, with the Zoe water. And what does she do? When she finally realizes that she has met the Savior, she goes running into the town to tell all the people there who she met and what he's done for her, and that he knew everything about her, and yet he still loved her. This is who we serve. The women who are walking through the doors of these centers are coming for help. They don't know that they're coming to meet the living water. They're coming for a sonogram. They're coming to find out how pregnant they are. They're coming to find out what resources there are. And that's a transactional experience that she will experience, that she will have. And we offer those things free of charge because of you, and the fact that you're supporting this ministry is the only reason why we are able to support these women and give them the medical services, the material support that they need, and the emotional support that they need. But more importantly, what she's receiving is eternal life. If she sees the tangible expression that Jesus is, we are the hands and feet of Christ ministering to her in that moment, that is what is going to grab a hold of her heart. And so we're not only saving the physical life of the baby, but we're hopefully potentially saving the soul of this woman. And what happens from there is that this woman's life can be radically changed. She's finally understanding who Jesus is and this new life that she can have in him. And our joy was always when she continued on with our pregnancy. We saw her growing in her relationship with God. But you know what? A pregnancy center isn't church. And so we would be very intentional about building relationships with the local churches. And for those of you who are here from local churches, thank you so much for being this supportive community, because if a client comes through Beacon of Light and wants to continue growing in her faith, we want there to be a safe place for her to go where she can continue growing in her relationship with God, that she could be discipled, that her child could potentially be raised surrounded by Christian community. This is the transformational work of Pregnancy Center Ministry. This is more than handing out diapers and wipes. This is more than just doing a sonogram, taking nothing away from the sonogram. It is the tip of the spear. She needs to see that baby. She needs to see the truth of the life that's inside of her. But she needs to be in a safe and loving environment. And that doesn't just happen. That is something that God does in the people who are there working day in and day out, serving the women who are coming through these doors. And believe me, every single situation is different. Every crisis has a different complexity. It could be that the father is walking out on her, or she's going to be kicked out of her house, or she's on drugs, or there's some other acute problem that is going on. And a sonogram and diapers and wipes aren't going to solve that problem, right? The love of Christ is going to transform her life into, we're now making disciples, right? And that's what the Samaritan woman did immediately. She went and told everybody about what Jesus did for her, and she wanted them to know that he loved her anyway. And so I just pray that we would see this issue more than just pro-life, pro-choice, the political debate, but we would really see it as an opportunity to reach women and families and men and children for Christ. Abortion and the gospel are directly linked because Jesus came that none should perish. And so he's asking us, we are the church, we're here in this generation, in this culture, and we are the light. And so if not for us, then who? Where else are they going to go? Where else are they going to turn that they will find the hope and the life that they deserve? Because why did they deserve it? Not because of anything that they've done, nor anything that you and I have done. They deserve it because this is God's daughter and it's his child that she's carrying. And to me, it just seems it's so easy. It's so easy to just come alongside someone and just say, I hear you, I see you, I want to help you. That's not a hard thing to do. We are ambassadors for Christ, and it's such a beautiful story when you get to actually see it unfold in front of your eyes. Aren't you just so grateful that God is so big that he can move the mountains that he created, but yet he can even see the tiniest detail of our hearts, and he is moved with compassion. It's just amazing. One of the things that, speaking of us as a Christian community, one of the challenges that I had as an executive director was actually getting into churches to be able to present the ministry of Soundview. And there was this one really large church on Long Island. They had multiple campuses all over Long Island. It took me actually years to be able to get the pastor to say that I could actually come in and just have like 5 minutes just to present the ministry of Soundview. And we booked it months out in advance, multi-campuses, and I'm recruiting all of these volunteers to go out to these churches. And I get a call from the pastor about a month before, and he said, Doreen, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to cancel your presentation. He said, there's another ministry that's coming in. I think it was World Vision, one of those ministries, one of those large ministries. And he said, I'm going to have to cancel you. We'll have to book this out in a couple of months. Okay, we book it out in a couple of months. And wouldn't you know, he calls me a few weeks before again. And he says, Doreen, I'm really sorry, but we're going to have to cancel. Because Youth for Christ, they're going to be coming in and they're going to be doing a presentation. And I I knew this pastor, and I knew that he was part of an association of pastors on Long Island, and I asked if I could see him personally. I wanted to have a conversation with him because at that point I was getting a little frustrated that it was so hard just to be able to talk about this wonderful ministry. Not because I'm only looking for support, but as it was mentioned tonight, 1 out of 4 women who are seeking abortion are actually sitting in their churches. 1 out of 4 women who call themselves churchgoers are there, or who have had abortion and they don't know that there is help available to them. So I was frustrated. So I wanted to talk to him and just get his advice. And I said, where's the ministry to the unborn here? Is it because we can't see them, that they don't matter? What is it? I don't understand. And he said to me, Doreen, I really feel sorry for you, because he said abortion is like the third rail. Nobody wants to touch it. And it really grieved my heart at that time, because I thought, well, the church is really giving into the idea that this is a social issue, that this is a political issue, and it really isn't. It's a discipleship issue. Well, he felt convicted, and he said, I'll tell you what. He said, I'm personally going to go with you around to all 3 campuses. So he set me up for 3 Sundays that year, and he went with me, and he advocated for our ministry. And great things came from that. Women who are going to these churches, sometimes we've even had a woman or 2, we've had quite a few actually, who would be sitting there and listening to a presentation and were already pregnant and didn't know what they were going to do, or they already had an abortion scheduled for Monday, and they would come into our center and they would get that sonogram and their babies would be saved. And so we're just so grateful for that. So for the pastors in the room, it would be just really wonderful if you would allow Beacon of Light to come in and just do a few-minute presentation. So what does it take to save a life and remove abortion from being the number one option? Well, first, it's the conviction that every single child has value, regardless of the circumstances surrounding how they were conceived, because they're a child of God. And if we believe that, and I believe you do because you're here tonight, how can you be a part of saving that life? And secondly, it takes skilled medical professionals to provide the critical medical care that they need to be able to see their babies on ultrasound. Third, it takes compassionate care in a safe environment where a woman will feel that she's not being judged or condemned. This is Jesus' model of ministry, meeting a woman in her mess, in her crisis, restoring her through grace and forgiveness. We need to understand that we are here to save the physical life of the child, but also the spiritual soul of the mom. It takes welcoming the fathers into the decision when it's appropriate, who are willing to mentor, and we need men who are willing to mentor these young men. I have just a quick story about a young man who actually did come in. We started asking the same question, are you going to be bringing the father with you? And this one young man came in, he was about 19 years old, and both she and he were both very, very abortion-minded. And so she comes in for the sonogram, and he's in the waiting room. And once the young woman sees the sonogram, she starts crying. I think the baby was about 12 or 13 weeks, and the baby's kicking and just really, really active. And she's crying because she said, my boyfriend is never going to want us to have this baby. They were just young and they just weren't ready to have this baby. So we asked her for permission to bring the young man into the room. So we did. We brought him into the room, and the nurse was there doing the sonogram. And he looked at the screen and he said, oh my gosh, that's a baby. He said, yeah, that's a baby. And as if on cue, the baby's image just turned around and it was facing the screen, and its arms started moving as if it was waving at the dad. And the nurse said, oh, look, your baby's waving at you. Your baby's waving at you. Well, with that, he just started bawling his eyes out. And he and she just, when they realized that this was a life and this was their child, it was in an instant that they chose life. And that young man was able to be mentored by male advocates that we have coming into the center for them. We know that the number one voice in this decision is the father of the baby. And what Michelle said is absolutely true. 86% of women who have abortions are not married and they don't feel like they have the support. So, we don't demonize the men. They're scared. They're immature. They don't know what they're doing when they're young at that age. I won't say any more about that, but but it's just so important to involve the dads, and I'm just so happy that Beacon of Light is doing that. Finally, it takes discipleship and mentoring to come alongside a woman and this couple to build a life that's rooted in Christ, and ideally that they would be introduced to a local church where they can continue to grow in Christian community and raise their children surrounded by loving individuals and change their destiny. Again, this is not a transactional service that we're providing. It's a transformational encounter with the love of Christ. When I was talking to Noelle and I was asking her, what do you need, Michelle? What do you need to continue serving women in your community? How can we come alongside of you and help this ministry grow? I'm going to challenge you a little bit tonight. I know this won't be a surprise to you. You're here, it is a fundraiser, right? If you think about the resources that you've been given and how are we investing those resources, for as far as I'm concerned, and I know that because you're here, you would agree that there is no greater investment than to invest in a life, an innocent life that is being fearfully and wonderfully made by God himself. And if this ministry exists, it's because God has put it here. He has placed Beacon of Light in this community for a purpose. And the women who are serving and the men who are serving on the board or in the centers or as volunteers are stepping in to the mess. They're stepping in onto the front lines, and they are willing to put themselves out there and to be the hands and feet of Christ. But they cannot be out there alone. This is where you come in. This is where the investment of your financial resources comes in. It's just like a missionary. Maybe some of you support missionaries that are around the world. You can't go to the mission field, but you can support the missionary that is out there on the front lines witnessing and leading people to Christ. It's the same thing. This is a mission right here in your own backyard. And what would be a shame is if they would have to scrape and struggle just to pay the bills, just to pay their salaries, when we have so much available to us. These are lives. You can't put a price tag on a life. Every life matters to God. Every life has indescribable worth. And so, as I mentioned before, God sees who we are. He knows what we have. He knows what we've been given. And it's our responsibility to steward those resources well. Now, you've heard all that they're doing here tonight. They provided this beautiful meal for you, a wonderful night out. But I really am praying that God, in his personal way with you, would speak to you directly. Maybe you came in tonight feeling or knowing that you had a number in your head that you were going to be giving. I want to challenge you to just stretch that a little bit more, because I'll tell you what, in the last couple of years, I asked Michelle to go back and look in the records of what was raised, and it's usually around the same each year, and we're just so grateful for every dollar that is given. Nothing is wasted. Everything is stewarded well. I can tell you that. But what you did here is that they're bringing on all these new services to attract women. They have these 24-hour hotlines or crisis lines for women to text and to get in touch with the center. Well, they need nurses. They need to have the available staff to be able to meet the needs of the women who are coming. They're growing, as you heard. They saw more women this year than they saw the year before. And if we want that number to keep growing, we have to be able to have the nurses. Training is very expensive, I can tell you that as well. So Michelle was saying that they would really love to hire another nurse. They would really love to be able to pay their nurses and some of their directors an adequate paycheck. A lot of these individuals, and I can speak for this directly, they're underpaid. They're seriously underpaid for what they do.
And what Michelle said is that they're paid probably not much more than minimum wage in many cases. They need support for the growing fatherhood ministry. They would love to have a director, a fatherhood director, an advocate. And as far as equipment goes, they really do need a copier machine, a scanner, fax to handle the production and dissemination of information. There's a lot that goes into, I don't think, unless you've been there and you've actually seen the work that goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort, money, resources to be able to offer professional care that women deserve. And then lastly, again, with the fatherhood materials, they need to bring on some of these courses, some of these resources for the dads. If they start coming in, the fathers actually start coming in, and we start to get the fatherhood mentors coming in, they need to have some resources to be able to give these young dads. So what I'm saying is, whatever you thought you were going to give tonight, and you push that up just a little bit, because what they're talking about is probably another $36,000 worth of financial resources that they need to be able to borrow. We don't want to just stay the same. We want to continue growing and reaching as many women as possible for the glory of God. So without your generosity, there is no one to answer the phone when she calls. There is no nurse to perform an ultrasound on her baby. There is no client advocate to come alongside of her and help her in her decision. Michelle and her team are working hard to reach these women, and I'm just praying tonight that you would help them to be the receiving and retreating arm of the body of Christ, and that you would support them and encourage them by being generous with forgiveness tonight, so that they can continue doing the work that they are called to do, and they're going to have to spend less time worrying about finances and fundraising. Let's get behind them. Let's support the work that they're doing. They are all in, and they're doing a great job. So thank you so much. I have just enjoyed being here with you tonight. I pray that the Lord would bless you in your coming and in your going, and that you are leaving here with a little bit deeper understanding of how desperately in need we are to have light and shine into darkness, to be able to be that receiving and retrieving arm of the body of Christ and lead women and men on the path of life to the Lord. And just pray that he would get all the glory for that. Thank you so much. God bless you.